Hi everyone, this is Katie from Katie Tutors Math. Today we're going to learn how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Here's the first quadratic equation we'll be working with today. So the first step in completing this square is to make sure that the x squared term does not have a coefficient in front of it. So right now we can see that x squared doesn't have a number in front of it, there's no coefficient, so we're good to go on that step. The second thing we want to do is take the constant, so in this case the minus 5, and we want that to be on the other side of the equation. So to eliminate this negative 5, we'll add 5 to both sides of the equation, and we'll get x squared plus 4x equals 5. The next thing we want to do is to look at the coefficient of the x term. So in this case, the coefficient is a positive 4. So we're going to take that 4 and we'll divide it by 2, which gets us 2, and then we'll square it. So 2 squared is 4. So 4 is the number that we're going to be using to complete this square. So we want to add that to the left side of our equation so that we can complete this square. But if we're going to add something to the left side, we also have to do it to the right side. So we'll add 4 to both sides of the equation. So we'll have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 5 plus 4. So on our left side of the equation now, we have x squared plus 4x plus 4. Our next step is to factor that. So if we're factoring this, we want to think what will multiply to get to 4 and add to get to 4. And that would be 2 and 2. So this will be x plus 2 times x plus 2. So whenever we have something written like this, we don't have to write x plus 2 times x plus 2. We can instead just simplify it to x plus 2 squared. So we'll write x plus 2 squared, so that's the factored form of x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 5 plus 4, that's just 9. Great, so now we just have an equation that looks pretty solvable to us. So the first thing we'll do is get rid of this squared by taking the square root of both sides. So we'll just get x plus 2, and we'll take the square root of 9, so that would just be 3. And whenever we take the square root, we have to remember to take both the positive and the negative value. So we'll take positive 3 and negative 3. So we're still trying to eliminate or get x by itself. So we'll do minus 2 on both sides. And we'll get x equals plus or minus 3 minus 2. So we'll solve for each of those values there. So we have x equals positive 3 minus 2, and that's 1. And x equals negative 3 minus 2, which is negative 5. So we have two answers here. We have x equals negative 5 and 1. And if we want to write that in set notation, we'll put these curly braces around it. And that's how we solve a quadratic equation by completing a square. Let's go on to a second example. So in this one, we have 3x squared minus 18x minus 6 equals 0. So our first step is to make sure that our x squared does not have a coefficient. In this case, it does have a coefficient. So what we'll do is try to eliminate that, and we'll do that by dividing everything by 3. So we'll divide everything on this side by 3, and everything on this side by 3. So we'll get x squared minus 6x minus 2 equals 0 divided by 3 is just 0. That doesn't change. Great, so that was our first step. Our second step is to move this constant term to the other side. So we'll add 2 to both sides of the equation and get x squared minus 6x equals 2. Our third step is the part where we really have to memorize this, is we take the negative 6 and we divide it by 2, so we get negative 3, and then we square that. So negative 3 squared is 9. So 9 is the number we're going to be using to complete this square. So we'll add 9 to both sides of the equation. X squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 2 plus 9. So we can do that because we're doing it to both sides of the equation. So the next step, now we have our perfect square here. We can factor this x squared minus 6x plus 9. So we want a number that will multiply to 9 and add to negative 6. So that would be negative 3 and negative 3. So we could write x minus 3 times x minus 3, or we can just write x minus 3 squared, which is exactly what we want for completing the square here, equals 2 plus 9 is 11. Awesome. So our next step, we're trying to get x by itself. We'll take the square root of both sides. We'll get x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 11. Always remembering to take the positive and negative value of the square root. And our last step is to add 3 to both sides. And we'll get x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 11. So we have two values there, 3 plus square root of 11 and 3 minus the square root of 11. Thanks for joining me today. Subscribe, like, comment on this video on what else you want me to cover in my upcoming videos. You can also visit katietutorsmath.com for more math help and to learn about personal math tutoring. Thanks.